Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live, or if you're watching on replay, thanks so much for watching. We're going to do a Art Foamies composition here. Art Foamies are the larger art foamy, that's the name of the line of products, versions of these Stampscape stamps. These art foamies allow us to get into these large scale types of images, with kind of an ease of impression. I don't know, whatever you call it, pressure, I guess. Where something like this, I do have a stamp this large, but it gets harder to make impressions from. But the art foamies tend to kind of eradicate that, I don't know, that issue when it comes to compression and I don't know, larger format pieces. So, okay, so we have the really large tree trunk here. I don't know how tall this is, like 9 inches or something like that. The tree trunk trio, and then the smaller tree trunk here. Okay, I don't know what we're going to have space in here for, but we're going to go with a 7.5 by 10 here. So pretty big. I've cut off a inch off each side of this length and width, just so I can mat it on something, and then we can put it into like an 8 by 10 frame or something like that. Hello, Diana. Happy Memorial Day there to you. I thought I would do something, I don't know, floral, when it comes to today. And it just so happens that yesterday I did one of my favorite kind of floral carpeted areas before, which I've never done before. I've put flowers into green kind of meadows, grassy area before, but I haven't done like a big carpeted area like this, full of color like that. And I love that look. After I did that, I thought, okay, I'm not, I don't know if I'm going back to just like greens with kind of a spattering of flowers in them anymore. I'm going to do them kind of full on. Hello, Debbie. How are you today? I was thinking about Memorial Day back when I was a den, either assistant leader or leader for our den in the Cub Scouts. And some dens were kind of organizing for Memorial Day, taking the kids out, and we were, putting flags at the veterans, cemetery. But how time flies. Gosh. All right, so I have all of my things out from yesterday when I was doing this, and I didn't really know quite what to have out, so I had some bluish tinge, and bluebells are kind of going into those violet ranges, but I wasn't quite sure which ones to use, so I just kind of grabbed everything, in that color scheme. And I don't know, it seemed like there was a lot of different things you can do, so there's nothing real specific. You just kind of grab, a range of green tones and a range of violets and blues. And you start with that. One of these days I'll have to try this with the watercolor pencils as well. I think that would be a great kind of foundation for this color scheme here. Or I don't know, whatever, floral scheme, I guess, too. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty large format piece, which I don't do too often, but I really wanted to get in a lot of these flowers. So I need to kind of consider, should I do the grassy area first and then you stamp your trees into it, or do you do the trees first and then do that floral scheme around it? I'm going to be doing these in water-based inks. So, when you're doing that, like these big, huge images like this, and when you're doing them in dyes like this, and then you're using a lot of ink, it's just like, okay, so when I start going into it, this ink might not be dried yet, so kind of thinking about smearing. But I wouldn't use like a StazOn on these foamies. I think that would be I don't know. I need to ask the owner, KP, what she thinks about stays on this. I would think that would be, yeah, it wouldn't be a good idea on foam, right? Hello, Kay. Good afternoon to you. All right, so I think I've re-inked this recently because I was thinking when I stamped something out the other day with this, I thought, oh, that is really juicy. So let's just see how this goes. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be using in here just because the availability of space in here using these large stamps. One of the things about these large stamps, though, when these foamies, when I started using them, was it occurred to me that even though this is, it's practically a full page scene, when your stamps are really large, proportionately, like, if I'm using kind of the same amount of stamps over a really large piece like this as smaller stamps on a, typical card size piece, it seemed like it didn't really take very much longer to do, than smaller stamps and smaller cards. I don't know. I guess it's just, I don't know, relative. I don't know. It doesn't take very much longer to fill in this with whatever brown tones, okay, than, a smaller one. It's just like, that amount more space. So it's just like, when you're coloring something like this with a color, and that, just to do that extra space, and I don't know, it's just like a few extra seconds. So I don't know, that kind of surprised me. And it's just because I haven't really been doing too many large format pieces, like historically, If I did, I don't know, a dozen of them up until about like 2 years ago, I'd say. But I don't know, whatever, 25 years of quarter page, half page, for the most part, scenes, like, I don't know, whatever, 98% of them or something like that. Then there were other things like, like stamp board, stuff like that, get thrown in there. So always learning. But yesterday this meadow here, that was my favorite. I think that's my favorite little area down there, meadowy area that for me yet. So that's kind of good, isn't it? That you can still do something that you've done I don't know, whatever, thousands of times before and still get kind of surprised and I don't know, whatever, you get your favorite areas or whatever areas of pieces. I want the StazOn soak into the foam fast. I think the StazOn would dry. I don't think it would soak into the foam. I think it would dry on the surface before I had a chance to do it. But yeah. It would soak in and then dry like that. So before I had a chance to print it out, So yeah, that's a good point. Hello, Jolene. How are you today? Let's see. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to clean off the StazOn, so no StazOn for this. So dye-based inks or like pigment inks maybe. I don't know if I don't know if I would do like a pigment ink, like a VersaFine Clair, that oil-based ink. I wouldn't be afraid to use Brilliance on here, okay, because it's a water-based pigment ink. And you can just, rinse this whole thing. You can put this whole thing under the sink and clean it off with no problem. I haven't cleaned these off at all yet. I don't think I have, because I think I've just been stamping them out in black the whole time. I haven't stamped them out in different color. Okay, so this is what I've done here. So this is the same stamp on each side. I just stamped this one up higher, so it represents something further off, Usually the higher you go in your composition, the more distant that object represents. So it's the base of the object when it comes to this. Okay, so I want this, I want a scenario where there's a lot of space in between so I can put that kind of bluebell, I don't know, whatever meadow scenario, forest floor, I guess, specifically in here. So, okay, but I want it to be predominantly that. Okay, so I'm trying to give it some space in between here. Thanks everyone who's logging in and checking this out. If anyone's logging in for the first time, this is one of those kind of majority of videos that are just kind of an experiment. As opposed to instructional, where I'm saying, okay, now after you do that one, now we're going to put this right here, you know, because I'm figuring this composition out as I go. But you can kind of, you know, get how I think about these things, you know, when considering it. And all these different things that I do on here, you know, it's not like, okay, that was the right thing to do. You know what I mean? There's a ton of different variations you can do with this. If I were to do this similar scenario again, I wouldn't do it the same way just because, you know, I like to do things differently, you know, from scene to scene. I tend to not want to do things twice, although I should do more stamp-along styles of videos where I kind of work out the composition. I've done that recently a little bit, where it's like, okay, I really like that composition, but in reality, you know, that whatever hour and, you know, 20 minutes it took me to kind of do it and to come up with that composition, if I just did it straight, you know, again, it would take 30 minutes. So I've been doing that once in a while, you know, a couple times recently. Quick scene stamp-alongs. Okay, this is the tree trunk trio, just to kind of give a little bit of variation to it. That was the smaller tree trunk there. And we'll go a little bit higher with this one. This one's like has 3 trunks. I can go over here, then I can put something right here, which would be kind of interesting. Or I can go right here, and a little subject matter could be more of a focal point. But I think I'm going to go like this. And I'm just kind of overlapping that tree just a little bit. If I overlapped it more, I'd mask it off a little bit, but, you know, we're going to really filling in all these different images. So, I don't do a lot of masking just in my stamping, you know, all together. So see that kind of overlapped in there. I mean, if it was going to come like way in here, I'd put a paper towel right there and just mask right in there. So, okay, so as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about that, you know, carpeted, you know, area down below with bluebells. So I'm trying to think if I want to have this extra trunk right here, then I can do that. Okay, so I'll mask this off. I'm just going to ink up this one, but this is still a little bit inky, so I'll mask this off right here so I can position one more of these smaller trunks right in here, I think. I'm kind of blocking it off. I'm not sure if I'm going to stamp. I'm not sure what subject matter I can put in here. I can have something like peeking out from behind, you know, within there or something. But I don't know. This one, the star of the scene is kind of those bluebells anyways. So I don't know. Maybe we'll just keep those as the focal point. I realized yesterday when I was attempting this first bluebell scene is that there is a lot of how to paint like a bluebell, you know, forest videos on YouTube. That's how I kind of thought about doing this one. Was one of those videos popped up on my YouTube feed, and I thought, oh, I just looked at the thumbnail. I didn't watch the video, but I thought, I think we can do something like that in stamping. So I gave it a shot. Okay, So this one I'm going about, I don't know, it's about a ½ inch lower. So maybe it'll look a little bit closer to us. I try to avoid repetition of imagery looking the same, so I'll just do it at different heights. So one just looks farther back and whatnot. I mean, if I did this like, you know, same exact stamp, you know, 20 times, it would probably start to get a little bit repetitive. But what you start doing is instead of having it in groupings of 3, you know, like this, what you can do is you can just, you know, clean off that and just stamp, you know, the single one. So you can have them in a cluster of 3. You can do individual ones. With this stamp right here, sometimes what you even do is you have one kind of going like this, you know, to represent kind of like a fallen tree, and you can have it amongst that type of thing. That type of cluster, but you have it in the background. Okay, let's see. Well, I'm glad they come in handy for you, Kay. Because I really enjoy kind of just kind of winging it, you know, in these videos. Or scenes, you know, my own kind of stamping process here. So, okay, so let's see. One of the things I was mentioning earlier is if, okay, I think that's pretty dry. See that, you know, when we're working with these big old images like this, I was just worried that, you know, a big area of, you know, fairly wet ink like that, moist ink, would kind of start smearing into my my terrain like that when I got started on that, but I think it'll be okay. All right, so I'm going to fill this area in with some of the sedge filler stamp. This is my go-to filler stamp for anything kind of grassy, that type of terrain. And I'm just going to do this. I'm thinking now, this is such a big space right here. I was wondering if I should do it in some tones of the colors that I'll be using in there, which I do sometimes. Let's say if this is going to be all green or something like that, I might do this in a dark green, okay? But I think just to have these textures hold up more against all of the different media that I'll be using in here, I think I want to do it in black, okay? So if you plan on doing a lot of coloring in something, let's say if we're doing something really minimal, okay? Just some light, oops, my alarm's going off for a Monday. I'm normally going off and picking up my kid right now. Okay, so if you're going to do something like, let's say, just a light wash of some watercolor green or something like that, you know, you can stamp this out on a lighter tone, but we're going to go pretty heavy with media on here. So let's go with black, okay? Now remember, if you ever stamp out your sedge filler and you start using a lot of color, your whatever, colored pencils, you know, markers, dye-based inks, whatever, and if you lose this, it's like, oh, okay, I can't even see the sedge filler anymore. What you do is you just assess how dark your area has become where you have lost this type of texturing and imagery. And you just go with a darker color and then you stamp that right over the top of it, you know. As long as, you know what I mean? You can do that as long as you know, whatever media you've laid down will accept, you know, the ink on top of it. Let's say, you know, if you fill this all in with a colored pencil or something like that, then it might not accept, you know, a dye-based ink application of this, where you might have to go with something like a StazOn. Okay? So usually I don't know, in most cases at no point in time can you not go back in and just stamp right over the top of, you know, areas. I do that all the time. I lose my clouds, you know. I'll have clouds in there in a certain value, and you know, I like to add a lot of tone into my skies, and you know, sometimes the clouds in certain areas kind of just disappear, so I just stamp over the top of that area with a darker cloud and get that texturing again. So you can do that with any kind of texturing that you want. Good to have you, Laura. Thanks for jumping in on the live. I didn't know if I was going to do a live or not, but I really wanted to get back to this floral, carpeted scenario right here. While it was, well, first of all, while I still had all of my media out that I used in yesterday's live, and kind of, well, it was still fresh in my mind how I did it. Because if I don't do these things, if I just do it once, and I don't do it again for a while, you kind of forget, right? I know, what do they say? You need to do something 3 times or something like that, to really get it down. For me, it's probably a little bit more. If I do it 3 times, I don't do it again for the next, like, I don't know, whatever, 3-4 months. I'm not gonna, I might not remember it, but anyways, the more kind of reps, that I get, the better. Okay, so let's see here. You can do these color schemes in many different ways. I'm figuring out more and more as time goes on. It's I'm using a lot of different media these days, especially with the semi-gloss cardstock. With the glossy cardstock, you can get a much more vibrant end result. But I can't use things like colored pencils on glossy cardstock, so I'm really enjoying playing around with glossy colored pencils and things like watercolor pencils. So, I find the semi-gloss to be a really good kind of intermediate between matte and glossy. You get the smoothness and, for the most part, the media retention, surface retention of glossy. Not quite, but almost. And the smoothness of application. But it's not like super textural or anything like that, so it's not great for colored pencils, but it's enough, that you can use it on there. Okay, so let's see, I'm trying to think. Okay, what greens did I use yesterday? I think I used one of these right here, the Mementos. I don't have my Marvy. No, I do have my Marvy pale green. I thought I didn't. But okay, so when you're choosing, this is what I teach people in my, or I used to in my beginning classes. If you're going to go for something, if you're going to do something, if you're going to color something in scenic stamping, a lot of times what you're doing is you're kind of developing a range of tones. And I tell people, it's not like, I'm still telling people this, even experienced stampers, but it's not, Stampscapes isn't brand specific. Use Marvings, so you have to use Marvings with Stampscapes, right? And glossy cardstock or something like that. It's not. You're using whatever color, is right for the scene. So it's not like going to be like brand specific, like, oh my God, you used a Distress ink instead of a Memento, so that's going to completely throw it off. I don't know where that seemed to have happened somewhere along the line where people just, I don't know, things got like brand specific that no one ever used to think of that. But I don't know, maybe a lot of instruction is like, okay, you use this color and then this one, you know what I mean? It's really more type of color. So if you're doing something in a dye-based ink style of application, it can be any dye-based inks, okay? Usually. I say that because there could be some brand that popped up that I don't know about that's, got some kind of, unusual characteristics or, characteristics specific to that, but I don't know of any like that. Okay, so I'm just going to go for a range of tones in here, and it's going to kind of oscillate between greens and violets in here, and that's where, I don't know, my learning curve is still in play here, because I only did this once yesterday, so it was like, how do you incorporate greens with purples, in a coloring setting? Because they don't really merge with each other really well. You can't really overlap the violets and the greens, you know what I mean? It's because these are transparent colors, so the colors are going to show through. So those kind of meetings of those two tones were the thing that I was thinking about. Okay, now see, I almost forgot. desert sand is going to be my kind of medium in here. Because this desert sand you can blend in with green, and this desert sand right here, just a tan color, can merge with the violet like that. But these two, like right next to each other, not really, right? So what you do is you come up with some sort of, you know, neutral, I guess, between those two. So something like this, tones like your distress inks, old paper, antique linen, you know, this warm kind of tones like that. Any of those would be fine. Like a beige color, okay? All right, so just wherever this green's going to go naturally, that's where, you know, that's where the grass is going to be kind of exposed, and the other areas will be those bluebell types of clusters in here. Okay, so I want to have a lot of those bluebells in this one. So I'll go a little bit more minimal with my green in here than I usually ever do, I guess. Okay, something like that. I'm having to put on the brakes on this, you know, from what I normally do, because that normally would be a lot more filled in right there. Okay, so let's go with this desert sand. I mean, I'm using the desert sand because that's, I think my antique linen is dry. And then I had a Marvy pale orange that's a little bit brighter. But this one's fine right here. Okay, so this is desert sand. And this is like totally smearing my freshly stamped black imagery, okay? But that's not going to matter because we're going to be using a lot of paint pens in here. Let's see. Did I do one in the middle of the night, Candy? Well, we're on Pacific Standard Time, so I don't know what time it is. Unless you were on during like that midnight one. And I am totally a night owl. Sometimes it's like that's the only time, you know, you get a chance, you know, you're doing other things during the day. It's like, okay, I finally have a chance to sit down and stamp. And if it's midnight, it's midnight. But hey, that being said, when I'm on like at a midnight live stream, there's a lot of people. Well, I don't know about a lot, but a lot of, you know, some people come on and they're Eastern Standard Time and they're still up. So they're up at like 3 a.m. Some of them like got up though. I don't know, maybe you were one of them. Hey, there's Linda. Linda Y. How are you? 6 times. Yeah, that's probably more like it with me too, Linda. How are you, Linda? Naturally, I don't see you around anymore now that, you know, the Carson show has now... The Carson Stamp Convention is not, you know, not taking place anymore. Measure 3 times before you cut. Yeah. What is that? What they say in construction or, you know, doing that type of work? Measure twice, something once, or something like that. Hello, Patty. Which stamp do you use for the Bluebells? I don't use any stamp for the Bluebells, Laura. I just use, you know, color, like a base color, and paint pens. Okay, so this is, it's looking really ugly, right? I like to point that out when I'm doing these types of things like this because I'm just kind of getting a foundation. So this, like, if someone was to do this, a lot of times in this type of process, not every process that I use is kind of like this, but a lot of it is. There's a lot of periods in time during the creation of a scene where it looks ugly. Okay, so this is one of those cases right here. All of my dye bastings, if I let this thing sit for a little bit of time, or if I heat set it, I wouldn't be getting this kind of smudgy. See how that's picking up all that black in here? It's looking real smudgy and everything like that, okay? But I'm going to be adding in more things, but a lot of times people can't see that. I can't see it here either, but I just know how it develops, okay? So keep that in mind, the opacity and the richness and all that type of thing. That all comes into, I don't know, it becomes present after, I don't know, these initial layers a lot of times like this. So this is an extreme case because there's so much black ink laid down here and it was a little bit wet, okay? Okay, so let's see here. Is that sad? Yeah, about the Carson show. Linda Y and I am talking about the Carson rubber stamp convention. Has everyone been to a rubber stamp convention before? Especially conventions are a little different these days, just in terms of the size of them. Okay, so Linda is in the the general LA area, going to the Carson show. And the Carson show at one time was the kind of the apex of stamp conventions. And at that show, at the largest incarnation years and years ago, decades ago, there were 65 rubber stamp vendors. Okay, and I'm going in with a pear tart here, and this is where we're getting into our brighter greens now. Okay, but yeah, there were 65 booths there. Some of the other shows around the country had quite a few too, but there were 65 booths in there, and I knew the the coordinator of those shows, so I didn't ask her all the time, but there might be, I don't know, another 20 companies that were kind of on the waiting list, that didn't get in to those shows. So a lot of times what happened was, because a lot of companies couldn't get into that show, more shows started popping up, different coordinators and whatnot. I'm getting a little bit too green in here, so I went a little bit overboard with that. So let's start hitting it with some of this pink in here, and that's where the bluebells come in. Yeah, Lindy, yeah, I think the Carson show's probably permanently gone, unless some other entity picks it up, okay? I don't know for sure. I mean, someone like, who are those other coordinators? Rubber Stamp Events, something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure if the Carson show started getting rather, pretty small and sparse. It's hard the thing is about being on the West Coast too, you get a lot of, companies are kind of spread out, and it's like a big expense for, especially if you have a large display for, companies to come out from the Midwest or back East or something like that. Or, if you're a little bit more centrally located or something like that, it's easier to get to, whatever, the Michigan shows or something like that. Or if you're, I don't know, in the Midwest or something like that, and if there are, let's say, some other shows the previous weekend or something like that, that gets you kind of in the vicinity of the next one, it's easier to do from a kind of an economical standpoint because you might be driving around your stuff in a truck with a trailer on it or something like that. Some of those larger displays. So, yeah, being out here on the West Coast, they used to, a lot of times people used to coordinate it with it used to be coordinated with the Mesa, Arizona show, which is just, I don't know, whatever, 4 hours away or whatever from Carson. And a lot of the companies would probably be, they might do some workshops at stores that carried your stamps, but, the number of stores out there, I don't know, they're few and far between now. So, so that was an issue, in other words, with the Carson show. Okay, so here's some of these bluebells. I am creeping out some of this color into that green, so it's like a, I don't know, what do you call it? What was that color? It wasn't puce. I can't remember the names of some of these colors now that I haven't heard been mentioned in a while. But Carson was something, I'm telling you. I just did a kind of a rubber stamp show and tell with a old 1990 rubber stamp madness, and it was just kind of interesting looking at some of the events that were going on and the stores that were around at the time. I kind of do those. I do those just because there's hardly any information out there on companies, entity, stores, conventions, so I've just somewhere years ago I thought, if no one's doing it, I should do it because there's just hardly any record of anything like that going on. Okay, so there's the kind of the foundation for the Bluebells right now. Carson's heyday was awesome. There's Georgia and South Carolina. I don't remember a South Carolina convention. That's interesting. Was it scrapbooking or was it scrapbooking and stamping? Georgia had one of the most interesting conventions, okay? It was in I don't remember what city it was in, and I didn't do it, but I heard about it from some vendors. But it was this, I don't know if you call it a convention. I guess it was a convention, but it was in kind of this kind of little historic, like a more historical area, okay, with a bunch of like Old Town, type of area. And what they did was each vendor was assigned to, it was all put on by, the whatever, by the different retailers in the area, okay, or they're part of a retail association, okay. So each company was assigned to go into a retail store, okay? So it might be like an antique store or something like that, where they've, you don't need a ton of space. They might have had like okay, we're going to put out like an 8-foot table for you, okay? So it's in this little historical area, Old Town area, and I'm going to use some brown on here. It's going to warm up my trees now a little bit with this first layer, okay? But the vendors, yeah, they were in these stores. Their booth was in a store. I don't know if anywhere out in the sidewalk. I don't think so, but that was in Georgia somewhere. I don't remember where. I'm guessing it was around. I don't know. I guess shouldn't even guess. I was going to say it's probably around Atlanta somewhere, but I don't know. It might not have been. But that one always kind of sticks out in my mind because I remember envisioning it and thinking, oh, that's kind of a cool format. It's something interesting or different from your normal, one room, convention hall or something like that. If you ever get a chance, Patty, you got to check out a show. These days, it's probably Stamp Away in Cincinnati. That's probably the one that's still kind of a little bit more of an event, you know. They would teach classes like on a Thursday and Friday leading up to the show. I don't know if they do that anymore because the store that used to be there that coordinated it is no longer around, and a lot of the classes used to be. Now, I think the demonstrations used to be in store. Maybe the classes were in the hotel, like in the classroom, meeting room areas or stuff like that. And then the show was a Friday night preview night for anyone that bought tickets for that. And then it's a one-day show on Saturday. But a lot of people did their shopping like on Friday nights in there, and it was, you know, I don't know how crowded it gets these days, but it used to get really crowded, so a lot of people used to do most of their shopping on Friday night that had tickets, and a lot of people bought tickets for it. I don't know if they limited the number of people in there on Friday night either, so it might have been everyone going to the show was there on Friday night anyway. And it used to be like a theme, so some people would dress in costume. I never did. The vendors were supposed to, but, you know, I'm traveling out there, and, you know, you only have so much room in your luggage. But I can't remember the themes. Like, one was like Roaring 20s or something like that. Anyway, what I'm getting at is it was kind of fun. It was a little bit more of like instead of just the show, I felt that it was almost like a retreat because you had classes that you can take leading up to the show, which Carson tried to do one time, and I taught classes like out there on a Friday, but I don't know. It was a little different. It wasn't quite like the I don't know, that format of Stamp Away. So that was a fun time, but there was more than a couple times where the Carson show, there were so many people that were going to that. It got not shut down by the fire marshal, but the fire marshal showed up, right, and limited the number of people in the room. Okay, so they'd wait till like, I don't know, like 40 people exited, and then okay, you 15 can go in there. And then when 15 would come out, they let 15 in or something like that. That happened at the Queen Mary show, which was an offshoot of the Carson show. It was the same show, but she just moved it, you know, I don't know, whatever, 20 minutes away to the Queen Mary, which is a ship, old ship, steamer ship, if you know. Hello, Jen. Scrap and Stamp has a convention in Pomona and Ontario. Scrap and Stamp and Scrap. I don't remember that one, Linda. Has that been going on for a while? Maybe that's the one that Ingrid's, you know, went to years ago. But I thought that was called something else. I thought that was one of those national kind of ones that kind of went around, or that had conventions everywhere. A glass blower for dollhouse miniatures. That's cool. Wow. I, I can't even imagine a glass blower for miniatures. How are you glass blowing that, you know, for something that's, you know, that tiny? That's really cool, though. The guy that used to make my rubber, I think he got his start. He was doing something for doll houses, you know. I don't know what thing he did for it, did for them, but I don't know. When you're saying that, that reminds me of, you know, my former supplier. That guy's name was, his company name was Circus Stamps, because he had a line of circus stamps that were kind of a modular system. You know, you can kind of put all your, you know, circus, you know, figures together and stuff like that. Okay, so we have kind of our value range in here, okay? Things start... Okay, so with color, you know, there's values, light and dark, right? There's the color too, which is the hue. Green, purple, brown, okay? And then within each one of the, you know, color, you know, the language of color, then there's intensity and value. So light and dark, and then bright and dull. Okay, so we're getting a little brighter in here, right in here in this area right here, which is, the, you know, we want that to be the most exciting area right there. We don't have a lot of kind of bright tones in there yet. So I'll start hitting that with some different hue to get a little bit brighter. Not everywhere, because we want to have a little bit of range in here from dull to bright and dark to light, okay? You know, just, you don't have to do that with everything, but it can potentially make things have a richer surface. Now you can do, you know, artwork too that's just, you know, everything is all of the same kind of intensity, you know, be it, you know, dull or bright, you know, just for emphasis. But usually I like to play these things off one another. So if you want something to look really bright, and remember, bright is not light, okay? Light and dark is different than bright and, you know, bright. Bright is the relative intensity of something. So you might have like a really dark blue that's super bright, but then like a pastel blue would be dull, okay? Okay, so in other words, what I'm getting at here is I like to play contrasts off one another, because if you want something to look really nice and bright, if you have something in your scene too that's also kind of dull, not dull in terms of interest level, but just dull in terms of intensity, it looks, you know, the bright will look even brighter and the dull will look even duller. But, you know, it's the brightness thing, you know, part that I want to kind of emphasize. So here comes some green in here, right? And this is, it's a pretty bright green, but it's a darker green. So if you put something darker right here, it'll make the areas around it, or anything that's lighter than it, look lighter by contrast. And there's no right or wrong, you know, it's just like, I wouldn't even see it's like taste, because if I did this again, it would be, you know, it would be different. So I'm just kind of winging it here and seeing how it looks. You guys got me thinking about conventions and things like that, but I was kind of thinking about that from yesterday too. Things that are kind of, when I flip through one of those old Rubber Stamp Madnesses, it really brings back some memories. You know, Gary Dorothy was the owner of Stampa-Barbara, which is probably, you know, was like the largest rubber stamp store entity that probably ever existed. Maybe not in terms of square footage or anything like that, but just in terms of like the quantity of stamps inventory, just on stamps though. I'm talking about not accessories. They were rubber stamp. Stampa-Barbara was all about just stamps. You know, they carried pads a little bit too, but it was more of a, you know, the stamp thing. Okay, so here comes the brightness with the green here. You know, it's I guess you can say you're kind of warming it up too. That still looks really muddy though. So on this one right here, the just like the one yesterday, the paint pens are really going to, you know, be, I don't know, a big factor in this right here. Okay. I'm just wondering if I should go a little bit darker, or if I should just leave it at that. I think I'm going to leave it at that right now with my dye-based inks. And sometimes when I'm doing this too, I'm wondering, I wonder if I should have just done it, you know, a lot of this with the colored pencils. Although I think the colored pencils and the dye-based inks, you know, make a great combination. Doing something like this, I mean, that would take a long time to fill in with just with a colored pencil, you know, at least in terms of the intensity of it, you know, the thickness of it. So it's good to get kind of that down there, I think. Dollhouses are coming back. I just watched a horror movie with like a couple movies over this last year that involved dollhouses. I don't know if that counts. The events were in Duluth, Georgia. You may, if you went to that one, that might have been it. Debbie. There was a store in Duluth, right? I can't remember the name of the store. I I thought we had a wholesale client there, yeah, that carried the line. Linda's been to rubber stamp scrapbooking conventions, and Carson was always extra special. Hard to explain that it went beyond volume. Carson was one of those organic conventions, and it kept expanding into every little room. So if you had been to those shows, there was a little bit of kind of like I wouldn't say it's an insider type of thing, but those new to the show, the Carson show, that went to it for the first time in its heyday, okay? Now, Carson, they always had a map on the thing, but you know what I mean? If you're talking about, 60 booths or something like that, and it's everywhere, okay? It was the main hall, the atrium area, West Wing. I forget which one I was in, what it was called. I think West Wing was this other one. North Hall, I don't know, whatever. And then within those spaces, one time it got way extreme, and there were rooms off of these wings, okay, like an outdoor area. Okay, but what I'm getting at is if you had been to one of those as your first show when it had expanded out all over the place, there were people that entered that show and had spent all their day in one whatever hall, the main hall usually, or something like that, and the atrium area, which is right outside. So some people came back, or they might tell me at the next show, they said, "Yeah, hey, the last show was our first one ever," and they didn't even know about this other whole wing, with whatever 20 other vendors or something like that, or 30. You know what I mean? Could have been 30. So, you know, so the people that had been going there and had seen, kind of it, expand from one room to the next one, they knew where all these things were. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, I don't know, it's like kind of discovery and I don't know. It's like, that's like your I don't know, whatever your, I don't know, like stamp hunting grounds or something like that. There was a real familiarity with the layout. Because by the way, the Carson convention was not in a convention center. It was a Carson community center. So it just wasn't kind of designed for kind of larger shows, which the Carson show ended up being. I just wish that someone had, in the heyday, you would have had to been shooting on like a VHS camcorder or something like that, walking around the show. But I don't think there's any record or much of a record of that show in that incarnation. Okay, so this is just some brown that I've been filling in. See, I didn't want to get into these areas like on the side here with my dye-based inks, although I could fill it in with something else, but this is kind of taking care of a lot of my shading in here. Let's see. Okay, Patty, you get RSM then, huh? Okay, that's cool. RSM's always been kind of a really big kind of champion of, scenic stamping as well. There's still, you know what I mean? The other magazines were kind of more, stamping magazines too, were kind of, you know, more about kind of like card making, I'd say, that aspect of stamping. But I'd say like Rubber Stamp Madness is still, you know, it's one of those things. It's still kind of on the just the form of rubber stamping in general. You know, impressions on paper. You know, that's their kind of I don't know, kind of focus, I guess. You know. So they've always been really great for, you know, just, you know, stamping in general, but, you know, scenic stamping is such a niche. So kind of representationally, there's probably a higher percentage of scenic stamping in there than, you know, any of the other previous magazine. I don't know. Are there any other magazines out there still that are around stamping? Is Stamper Sampler still out there? You know, from Somerset Studio. Okay, now see, the colored pencils naturally are, you know, I'm able to get into these little areas much better with this. I also have some, I don't know, you know, if I was to do this, it would have been better if I did it before the colored pencil, you know, because this, like alcohol inks, you know, you can add your alcohol inks in here as well. That one's a little bit too bright. Let me blend that out like this. But the alcohol pens are really fantastic on this paper as well. And then I just do a lot of blending like that. But you can get your intensity levels up really nicely and richness with alcohol inks. This is probably, these alcohols in these pens are probably acting like, you know, people use, okay, we were just talking about it in the other live the other day. Gamsol and colored pencils, right? This alcohol, I got to think, is kind of doing a similar type of thing. So, I don't know, you can kind of use your alcohol pens with your, you know, colored pencils probably. Okay, this is a little bit of a, like a olivey green. It's called elm green here. But just to get a little bit of this color, this greenish tinge up in these trees, I think it'd be good. Because it kind of relates to this green down here. It's a different green, but, you know, let's see what this looks like a little bit. And then I'm just going in with the, oh, this is like a gray, and I'm just kind of blending this out a little bit, or spreading it out. Oops, outside of my lines. So at all these different conventions, I didn't really get to walk the convention very much, you know, because I'm in the booth, you know, demonstrating and, you know, doing make and takes and stuff like that. But it was kind of fun to get, you know, walk around the shows, you know, like before, like Saturday morning or something like that. If we were already set up and I had a little bit of time to walk around, that's usually when the vendors would kind of visit with each other, you know, a little bit, you know, while you're setting up, or, you know, before Saturday, or sometimes a little bit after the show on Saturday, you know, when we're not taking down. You get a chance to visit with your fellow vendors and whatnot. Always fun times. You don't really get to know, you know, vendors too much, because when we're setting up, you know, everyone's kind of in a hurry to get things set up, and then definitely during takedown, you're trying to, you know, get everything taken down and out of there. So you might see people over years and years and years, and you have a little like small talk, but it was always kind of nice, you know, getting to know vendors a little bit more. All right, so here comes the darker brown here. I'm trying to vary things too a little bit. I don't want things kind of just absolutely uniform in here. So you can see like some of these areas, I'm kind of keeping it a little bit lighter maybe. Like maybe I'll have the lighting coming from in here. So what you do is the trees to the left side of the light, you have it, you know, you hit it a little bit more with some of your darker tones like this, just to, as they say, turn the objects in space. You make them look more dimensional. And then this tree right here to the right of the lighting, you know, you can darken up this side like this, okay? So you're kind of directing your viewer's eye in some ways too by making them look, you know, people tend to look towards the light source, you know, or something. Let's see. Heirloom conventions. I used to do, no wait, Kay, there was an heirloom in Riverside? That wasn't Auntie Amy? Or did Heirloom do a Riverside as well? I don't know, Linda, yeah. Okay, so Heirloom also did Del Mar, and I did that show. The first show that I ever did was Del Mar. And I don't, they might have did it the next year, but I did it, and it was gone for a couple of years, and then I started doing those ones again. Electric with glass fixtures, $5,000 dollhouse. Those are specialty types of things, though, so I wouldn't be surprised at all with that. You know, it's all like handmade stuff. I don't, you know, that type of thing is probably not like mass produced, you know, or something like that. Just like rubber stamps, you know. Well, so much of it is like handmade. Linda loved the Carson on the Queen Mary. The first Queen Mary show, that was one of those ones where they had the fire marshal came and started regulating that. Some people, it took them like, can you imagine going to a convention and having to wait out in line for like 2 or 3 hours? Some people just took off and they never even tried to go to the Queen Mary show again. But that show was so crowded in there. You know, the Queen Mary's not, you know, designed for conventions, but I think they got as many people going to that show as before. Okay, but here's the thing. You know, when rubber stampers go to shows, okay, and not being sexist here or anything like that, but you know, 98% of people that rubber stamp, they're women, okay? But on that show, I think people were making kind of like a vacation out of it a little bit. So you got like a lot of dudes in there in that show, kind of going to the show, you know, because, you know, people stayed on the Queen Mary and made a little bit of a vacation out of it. Here's black right here. And so there was a lot more guys in there, you know, not a huge number. And I know this because a lot of times when guys go to a stamp convention, if they're not rubber stampers, okay, they walk around a little bit and, you know, they're done with the show in their mind in, you know, 15 minutes or something like that, you know. So I would get them a lot of times. They'd watch my demo, you know, with the, you know, the nature stuff. So kind of hanging out in the background or something like that. But so I saw a lot of more guys at that show, but it was so packed in that show that I could barely move, like for like the whole day, like for hours. And it's the first time, you know, conventions are all kind of busy, you know, and there's people, you know, milling about and stuff like that. And, you know, the convention booths were always packed and stuff like that. But for a brief moment at the end of one of those days, kind of towards the end, I got a brief, I don't know, like 2 second kind of like panic attack. Not, I don't know if it was a panic attack, but it was that claustrophobia feeling, you know? And it only lasted like a couple seconds. But I don't know. I think I was trying to get something or something like that. I don't know what it was. It was like, oh my God. So I got like a I don't know, whatever, a couple second kind of touch of you know, when I see like panic attacks in movies or something like that. I know what they're. I have a gist, at least, a tiny bit of you know, what that's supposed to represent there. Okay, so there's black right there. Okay, so I think those trees are looking pretty rendered right now. So we just have this area down here to kind of render up and to get that area looking, you know, decent. And okay, so this is my piece from yesterday. Not that my piece, you know, my first time doing it should be kind of a model for this, but I think adding some brighter pinks into this area would be good. And I was kind of being a little bit careful yesterday, but when I started adding in the paint pens and things like that, it just, I don't know, it just eradicates any kind of irregularities that, or things that you might not want in there. So, you know, you don't have to be too careful about it, in other words. All right, so let's see, here's a little bit of this pinkish tinge like that, you know, and this is, remember, this is where that kind of intensity comes in. So we're adding bright into here, and it's a little bit too bright, right? But, you know, you have our blender pen in there as well. So this is kind of just creating a little bit of a foundation for me. And then see, here's this duller one in relation. So I'll take that and I'll just kind of blend that out like this into those greens. Because if you come in with like this one right here into those green tones, it's not too much of a, you know, a shock in whatever, in intensity or color blending into that green. The green will probably just show right through this dull pink right here anyway. Like that. And then you can come into, see, this is like a similar color to like your desert sand. You know, it's close enough. And then you just use this as your intermediate like this and just kind of come like that and just blend that in like so. Let's see. Internet changed everything for us and Stampsters. Yeah. Digital, everything. Like digital, the music industry is different, you know. Internet, yeah. Used to love to fly up to, did you, is that supposed to be Stampa Barbara, Linda, with your girlfriend? Stamper Barbara. That autocorrect there. That's gotta mean Stampa Barbara. But you'd fly there? Everything was wood mounted. Yeah. Super hull, heavy hulls back in those days. Yeah, that's right, Kay. Wood mounted stamps. There was someone, okay, I might have mentioned this to you guys before if you were in these live streams before. But, okay, so here's something that the public wouldn't know about. So you're getting that all on the insider information from your Stampscapes live here. But there was this couple, you know, that were at the Carson show one time, and they didn't seem like stampers. Okay, stampers wouldn't do this, but they must have been just, I don't know, kleptos or something like that, kleptomaniacs, you know. But there was this guy, kind of a younger guy. Okay, I don't know how old he was. It was described to me. I didn't see these people walking around the Carson show. Okay, this is some green here. I'm putting in some extra texturing in here as a preliminary texture making, I don't know, whatever, tool for my paint pens, okay? But this young guy, he was probably in his teens, I guess, and he was walking around this girl, and then, okay, so they were stealing stamps, okay, wood-mounted stamps. This is probably in the early 90s, maybe. I'm trying to think if I was working for a Stamp in the Hand still, if I'd started Stampscapes. But they had a jacket, okay, that they were kind of holding over their arm like this, okay? And what they had done was, I don't know if they tied off a sleeve or something like that. I don't know if it was a hoodie. I don't know what it was, okay? And so they were dropping stamps into that jacket, and it was filling up like a sleeve, like a sausage. It was a rubber stamp sausage. Rubber stamp sausage theft device, I guess specifically. And they'd fill that up, and the way they got caught was that some vendor heard this, you hear this, going into whatever. They hear that kind of happening, I guess. So they got security, and they went out to their car, and they had like big, I don't know, whatever, containers full of wood-mounted stamps. So they were making runs out to their car to drop it off, because, they just couldn't, you know what I mean? It was heavy. So like I said, these people, you can tell who's a stamper and not, or you can at least tell who's not a stamper, okay? And these people weren't stampers. The dude's not, going home and using his stamps or something like that. But that's my wood-mounted stamp theft story there. And when it was all wood-mounted stamps too, sometimes people would be stealing stamps in your booth. I never caught anyone, but they would peel the rubber off of the cushion, and they'd throw the wood-mounted stamp with the cushion on there underneath, like the table. You have table skirts, and they'd throw it underneath there. So not to make this live stream about stamp theft, but I don't know. I thought it was funny. It's funny, and it's not funny at the time, but I don't know. I always thought that was kind of interesting, of one of those stamp convention kind of whatever storylines. The thing about the unmounting of the stamp that happened at different shows, so I don't know. That seemed to be kind of one of those tactics that was just kind of universally known or something like that. Okay, so anyways, here's some of this Bluebell area down here. I'm kind of getting a little bit brighter this time. Yesterday I didn't do it too bright, and I didn't do this little dotting right here with my alcohol pen, which I'm going to try today just to get a little bit more, I don't know, kind of intensity going here. So we'll see how that works out. And okay, now see, I don't see too much of my sedge filler anymore, so I might have to stamp in some kind of a little bit more of a defining textural forms in here again, like the sedge filler or something like that again. Patty, I don't so much these days, because I do that. Sometimes I'll use I tried a cotton ball one time recently. I thought, that cotton ball works pretty good. I didn't think it would, because I didn't think it would be applying as much ink as I'd want it to. But sometimes, on a rare occasion, I might use some like a kitchen sponge. Patty, I want to use these things that, there might be someone watching in South Africa. one of these videos, and I just want to use the things that are readily available to them. I've been using things like my favorite things, like color box stylus tools and things like that, which were, people can get their hands on, but it was more of a specialty type of thing. And I'd use the things that I thought were the best. Okay. They weren't the things that had to be used, though, in order to create, some sort of effect with it. And over time, I just got, I didn't like the some sort of notion by anyone, or if you're just feeling that way, like, hey, I just can't, I wish I could do that, but I can't because I can't get that item. Okay. So when Colorbox went out of, or ClearSnap went out of business, I just thought, okay, let's just go back to, like the early 90s, okay, where, people were just using anything. And I don't know, I kind of like that too, because, everyone has it already, those types of things. Now, they might not have certain things, but they can get them, paint pens or something like that. Colored pencils here. I've been using a lot more of the semi-gloss cardstock, which is really similar to, I'm adding shadows right in here at the base of the trees, by the way, to anchor them into the scene a little bit more. But yeah, I've been using like this semi-gloss cardstock because if you type in like semi-gloss cardstock in Canada or something like that, there's usually some, some different versions of it that you can get. And it's a little bit more accessible. Glossy cardstock did not used to be hard to find anywhere, okay? I'm talking about in any country too, because everyone used it. You wanted the United Kingdom and some glossy cardstock, no problem. You can go into your local store and they would carry it. If you couldn't or you get it somewhere else. But it's like, oh, okay, with the stores gone now, I don't know where they were getting it in these other countries. Australia had their favorite paste setter glossy cardstock, but I don't know. I'm trying to use stuff that's just, I don't know if it's easily accessible, but it's definitely accessible now. And I don't know. I don't know. There's different strengths too of something like this too. I don't know. There's not really a strength to the paper towel, over something else. I think the ultimate applicator, would just be like if you had like an old T-shirt or something like that, and like an old soft rag, like a cotton one. I think that would be, in theory, kind of the best applicator, because it has the density and the absorption factor of that you'd want in the application of a wet medium. Okay. You guys might laugh at this though, but if I were to do something like some kind of T-shirt or something like that, that 1% of people that might catch the video where that was being used, they might say, "What T-shirt did you use?" I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, it would definitely happen at somewhere along the line. If I had enough, if enough people watched it. Okay, so anyways, there, see, we got the, how do those trees look? Nice and, varied and rich, hopefully, and here's the black, the black is kind of enhancing that whole idea of kind of directional lighting, I don't know, here, see this tree right here? Let me get this side of it a little bit darker. So it kind of pushes that idea of central lighting, I don't know, or right here, Okay, something like that. All right, so we'll have the kind of the light coming through here. Let's see. Okay, now one of the things I did yesterday too was I used some of my black down in this meadowy area. Yeah, I almost need to kind of create a little bit of a deeper shadows in there, but let's just try this right here. I'm using this black more like a, maybe like a 20%, 30% gray, like that, okay? So let's just get a little bit of variation within this grassy area. I can barely see my sedge filler anymore, so I'm kind of staying on some of the top clusters a little bit. But do you see that kind of different little range in here now? Just so it's not just this one uniform kind of one uniform value in here. Okay, maybe I'll hit it with some of the darker green in this darker green area. What's RSM doing different these days? I get the mags, but I just kind of flip through them, you know? Scenic art. It's more freeform, though, huh, Candy? Or at least some of them are. Oh, yeah, print media, huh, Linda? Not even the LA Times. Yeah, Candy, that's always what you're gonna be asked there, huh? How did you do that? They don't know if you know your piece is Candy if you did it with to the non-scenic stamper too. Sometimes even experienced stampers, it's like, okay, is that one stamp or is that you know what? How did you do that? And what did you stamp first? You know, they don't know that either. And you're always working in all kinds of different types of like styles too. You know, so yeah, the viewers of your pieces, you're probably keeping them on their toes. Anti-Amy and heirloom. Okay. Oh, so there were two. Were there two conventions in Riverside then? Oh, Auntie Amy took over heirloom. Huh. Oh, you did one of the stamp board pieces then at the heirloom show. Hmm. Kay, what show was that? Oh, that's cool, Kay. See, I get the guys over there. I get the spouses, you know. The spouses don't want to go and see that, like the, you know what I mean? They're not terribly interested in watching that like glitter embossing demonstration or something like that, which I would be, but you know what I mean, to the non-stamper, you know, or what they would do sometimes. I don't know if I would see them, you know, going around to too many different shows, but it'd be the guy could sometimes be helpful in that they were kind of like a pack mule, you know. So, you know, the stamper in the relationship, usually a she, okay, she can go and sit down at a make and take or demo or wait there without carrying like, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, I'd get some guy with a bunch of bags or something like that in the booth, you know. And once in a while too, you know, the guys too, if I was doing make and takes, some guy might be watching for a while and you know, there's people waiting for a make and take or something like that, or doing a make and take, or sometimes I might be doing samples or something like that. But I'd say, hey, this guy's been sitting there for like 3 hours. I'd say, hey, you want to jump in here? And a lot of times they'd say no. But then sometimes I can convince them after a while, to sit down and give it a go. And that was, it was fun for me. Getting some dude there, that was, enjoying watching the demo, or just, it was less boring for them or something like that. But, a lot of times, they would do just as well as anyone else. We weren't doing kind of like advanced, stamping techniques or anything like that. So always fun times. Okay, so paint pens. I'm starting off with the 3mm, and then I'll follow up with the 0.7mm. So there's a lot of different colors here, kind of within this color scheme that I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to shake these all up at the same time here. Rubber stamp sausage, yes, Chen. Oh, she had a small plane. I was wondering, flying from like no, wait, did Carson have an airport? You weren't flying into LAX, of course, right? Sue's. Oh, you worked for Sue's. Got it. Oh, you were... When I spotted one, I had to... Yeah, you had to tell security. Yeah, you weren't supposed to, get them yourselves. Where did that come up? King James. King James was a fantastic... that was that when we were talking about the glossy cardstock. King James was fantastic. So many different glossy cardstocks have come and gone. Okay, so I'm going to start with my darker tones, and then I'll work into my lighter ones, because the lighter kind of look good over the top of the darker one. These paint pens are a little bit more opaque. So with a lot of the colors that I've used so far, with dye-based inks, alcohol inks, and even colored pencils, they're kind of a little bit more transparent. So with those ones, I typically work from light to dark, okay? But with more opaque media, I usually work from dark to light, okay? So it's like we've gone light and we've worked darker, darker, and darker. Now I'm starting with the darker and then kind of working it lighter, with the opaque media, being, specifically, I guess it's just the paint pens, the acrylic paint pens, which weren't always around, okay? All right, so let's adding these down like so. I'm gonna try to cluster it a little bit, but there's gonna be a kind of a profusion of floral, whatever, texturing in here, so I'm adding quite a bit of it. This purple right here doesn't really show up too much. I was mentioning in yesterday's live stream. When you do like a dark purple or a certain value of violet over that same value of green, it's not really going to show up too much. But that's what I want, though, because it incorporates and merges better that way. It harmonizes better, there's not a huge amount of contrast between it. Now, if I put this purple next to something that's a lot darker or a lot lighter, it stands out, okay? So for the most part, I'm just kind of keeping it in areas where it's not too loud of a texture, or noticeable of a texture, okay? You can see it kind of standing out a little bit more as I go into those kind of darker areas, okay? So some of these areas too where I got a little bit more green than I kind of was intending, I'll just come into that area with the slightly darker purplish tone, about like that. I don't have there's no Bluebells that I know of in California, unless they're in someone's yard. But a lot of the painting videos that I saw, it was kind of more of a violet tinge. I saw a couple of them were a little bit, bluer. So I'm going off of those, I don't know, watery, like video things. Okay, so that is dark, I don't know. This is like a 80% probably violet, I'm guessing, in terms of light and dark. I kind of wanted to keep, I'm trying to keep this loose, because I watched those watercolor videos of painting these types of things. I don't think anywhere were acrylics. So I'm trying to keep it that light kind of, kind of a, it's not exactly impressionistic, but you know what I mean? We want to get some of that spirit in there a little bit. People have asked RSM to do more than scenes. Oh, got it. Yeah. RSM used to be all kinds of different things. It's changed over the years. When I started getting RSM, late 80s, mostly the early 90s, to mid 90s especially. They had all kinds of different things, but definitely the weird types of things, or whatever they considered kind of weird. Okay, so we're going with a kind of a, this is like a 10%, violet. So it stands out pretty much. So this is where it's starting to get a little bit more shimmery. So I'll add this in some of my lighter areas, and I'll kind of creep it into the darker areas. But I kind of taper it when it starts moving in here because those dots really stand out in here, okay, in that tone. I might add more, but, I'll try to keep it looking reasonably I don't know what the word, influenced by the lighting. In other words, I wouldn't have too many like super light, flowers in the darkest shaded areas, There might be some flowers in there, but it'll just have like a darker version of them, so. So Linda, did you catch people? And how many times did you go get security? I'm wondering. Oh, your husband. Wow. He would help you remember like usage of materials or something like that. Stampscapes. You say, hey, that dude that was doing those scenes. And people that are in the Arizona area, if they've done taken like scenic stamping classes, they often took it with Ken Pesho, and he's someone that was sitting around in my booth one time, and then I'd see him the next time. His wife was a rubber stamper, and I don't know if he was doing. I forgot his story. If he was doing stamping, like at Ben Franklin or I don't know, it was something like that. But Delia, his wife, was a stamper card maker, and then at some point in time, he was one of those guys that was sitting there watching, and I had him do a scene or two, and then I'd see him at the. I think they came out for like every show. Carson's show for a while. All right, so kind of bringing that, that area to life a little bit. It still looks like kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't look terribly cohesive yet, but we're just kind of, we're getting there. Okay, so that was this. So you see right here where I'm working from, and this way's like darker, lighter, lighter right here. When you start moving up into your really light tones, they kind of act as kind of like highlighting too, so it's kind of like whatever, they're flowers, but it's also kind of highlighting. I don't know, in this case, it'd be like a cluster or something like that. The white does that, the most, but, this is a fairly light value too. Now this one right here, I'm trying to cluster it a little bit more, being that it's kind of lighting as well. I just put my hand in like that right there, like that. I should probably work from the top down. Yeah, I'll be careful not to put my fingers in it. This paint dries pretty fast though. All right. I'm going to hit it with some bluish tinges in here now. I think this one was a really perfect one. I wish I had this color right here in the 3mm. I might have to start looking for some larger 3mm sets. Oh, bye to Linda. She's probably already gone. Oh, bye, Patty. Thanks for joining in. Hello, High Ground Home and Garden. Good to see you again. Uptown Rubber Stamps. Yes. Wow. That's I haven't heard the name of Uptown Rubber Stamps in a long time. Okay, now they were in Fort Collins. That's right. Hold on a second. Someone's at my front door. I was saying, who is delivering? I was going to say, mail's not coming today. And I'm expecting a pickup from DHL. It was Amazon. Of course, Amazon, right? They're working every day, I guess. Okay, this is looking good, I think. That blue in there, okay? Looking a little bit more bluebellish like that, okay? Yeah, Uptown Rubber Stamps. Wow, Uptown Rubber Stamps. They were a big force in stamping, weren't they? I think they were manufacturing for other companies as well. But yeah, I remember them. I remember them carrying like. I'm trying to think of the Fort Collins. Hi, Grant. Do you remember? There was a store or like a small chain of stamp stores. I think there was one in Fort Collins. They might have had another one. I don't know if it was in Denver, but it was in one of those suburbs. But I thought there was a store that had about 3 locations, in Colorado. And I was trying to remember the name of them because I think I taught at I think I taught at the Fort Collins store. But I just could not remember the name of the place. Okay, this blue is the thing that's starting to bring everything together here, I think. When I taught at Fort Collins, I took a day off to go to Estes Park. And that's when I saw. And then I drove through, I don't know, whatever that main drag is in Rocky Mountain National Park. Oh, heat embossing. I've mentioned this before on different videos, but I used to ask, just killing some time, getting ready for a workshop when we're waiting around, for the class to start. One of those questions that, you might ask people is, how did you get into rubber stamping? Okay. And at one point in time, I'd say about 70% of the people would say it was embossing that that got them into rubber stamping. Or, what I mean? They saw that was the application right there, that really got them hooked on, or that got them interested in getting into the hobby. Later on, over the years, that slowly changed to, I'm doing with a darker blue here. That slowly changed to Stampin' Up. Stampin' Up became the most influential kind of lead-in into the hobby. All right, I went crazy with that, but we're going to add in some other things in here now. Okay, so I want to go a little, did I use the green in here? I don't remember if I did. Okay, so we're going to add in some little bit of highlights into my grassy areas, the green area, okay. It's almost like I'm doing like pointillism here on this scene. Which I think it's different than stippling. It's when they use like colored little paint dots. But yeah, I didn't really do too much embossing at all through the years. I started doing it a little bit more. Like embossing on this would be kind of cool if I embossed like the foreground. And, just having some imagery that was a little bit raised and three-dimensional. I'm always trying to go for kind of a look of dimension and, distance in my scenes, but adding in kind of something that's actually three-dimensional is kind of cool to do. Okay, so here's white. I should really use the larger one in here too, just because of the size of everything in here. But this is the thing that's really going to be, acting as a nice kind of I don't know, line of definition within this space, okay? So the things that I'm looking for right here is, see these, where these kind of these edge of these color changes are taking place. That's what I'm gonna, that's what I'm targeting right here with the white. Okay, so even in the distance right up here, coming into contact with that kind of horizon line, I'll put some highlights up there, okay? So that's generally what I'm doing. In some areas I'm just kind of adding some of this just because it's just to get a little lighting in there. So, what I do for one area isn't necessarily what I'm doing for the overall, everywhere. It's just kind of a starting point. All right, so see, it kind of defined like the little clusters a little bit more. Maybe about like that. Yeah, I think that looks, it's like bringing it all together now. You know, where before it was like a cluttered mess. All right, so here's this. Wait, where? Yeah, this one right here. This was like ideal like bluebell color, I think. It's so small though, and this is such a big scene. Yeah, I won't add too much of this. This isn't like a exactly engaging, you know, live stream viewing. Adding this kind of invisible dot, you know, 1,000 times into a scene. You can see it kind of, you know, in person here, if you had the piece, but I'll just try to get a few of these laid down just to give it a little bit more of that tinge, you know, that more of a bluish tinge. This is like a violet though, kind of, or I don't know, blue violet. Maybe I'll add it in some of those darker areas, like I said, you know, to make those darker greens a little bit more interesting. All right. So we have that. And then we'll add in some extra foreground. I'm kind of debating on whether or not I want to add a little tinge of some blue up there. Sometimes I don't do that because if I want to add in some white kind of mist in here, having all that white in the background really allows me to add that white kind of haze, you know, wherever I want to. I think what I'm going to do on this one is I'll add a little bit of this white kind of foggy mist right around the base of these trees. And then over the top of that, I'll add in some like overhanging foliage in a crisp way. We can add that in right now, and some of that foliage could be in that hazy mist too. But I think why don't I keep those things kind of separated, and then we'll finish this piece off. I still have a little space in there. I could put something in there. I'm not sure if I want to or not. Because sometimes, like I said, in all those, I don't know, not that I have to kind of go off of the, you know, those paintings and things like that that I saw being done on YouTube, but I don't know, it's really kind of been focusing in more on the you know, the flowers, you know, the carpet of flowers. So I don't know. I'll take a look in here, and so we'll see if it's interesting enough. Then maybe I'll just leave it as is. But sometimes things can really benefit from a focal point. It might have been Uptown, you know. Do they have several stores? I didn't have too much time for hiking when I was at Nestus Park, but I hiked up this one trail to this little pond called Gem Lake. And along the way, on that hike, there were some aspen trees kind of, you know, in full, kind of full fall, you know, color. And I remember walking underneath those aspens and just thinking it was like walking under like a canopy of like living stained glass. So that's what I have this image. Yeah. So these trees right here, quaking aspen. When I use those trees, I'm often thinking about that hike in Estes Park with that light coming through them. And those aspen trees are an older design that I did before things like these paint pens were available. So when these paint pens became available, it's like, okay, I need to go back to those designs because I can now do what I wanted to do or what I always envisioned doing with them. But it wasn't available to me, so I can stamp those things out and then put those paint pen types of, you know, shimmering little dots over the top of it. to, represent light coming through, the leaves. So you can illuminate them. Okay, so see right here, even on this little narrow tree, what you do is you put a little bit of this pigment ink in here. I'm kind of trying to hit the right side of it, but you see what you do? You oscillate your use of this pigment, so there's a little bit here, here, and then here, but then leave some areas just bare so that you have some contrasting lighting and texture kind of working in there. Just for variation. It's a lighting variation. It's a textural variation. You have crisp and soft. You have light and dark. Okay, you can see that's kind of doing right there. You can really see it up there. But remember, I'm going to have this overhanging foliage in here too. If you ever add too much, like that, it just wipes right off. So, don't worry about it. In terms of it's not a precarious type of process right here. Mid-90s, you got a lot of these companies that were around, and no matter how big they were, it's it's pretty crazy. There's not a lot of margin. There's not a heavy margin in rubber stamps, especially back in the days of wood-mounted stamps. So yeah, they were, heavy in production costs back then. These days, you don't see a lot of rubber stamps in production either. It's mostly clear stamps. They're just so much cheaper to produce. They don't give you as good of an impression quality, and you can't use them certainly with certain types of inks, and the longevity of them isn't the same. But they're just a lot cheaper to produce. But that certainly helps, the game, I guess. So the problem with a lot of the manufacturers out there, back when like a large chain store might come in, they might say, okay, so if we order 5,000 of these 20 designs, or something like that, we'd like to have another 25% off the wholesale price, okay? And a lot of those companies did that, even though they weren't making very much of a margin just at the straight wholesale price, but they thought they were doing pretty good, selling, I don't know, here they have an order for, hundreds of thousands of stamps or something like that. But I'm being very delicate here, by the way. In terms of my application of this, I'm not like daintily touching it. I'm just saying my applicator here or my cotton ball is fairly dry with this pigment ink. Okay, but these large chain stores would carry, okay, we're going to carry these stamps, and we want your 20 most popular designs, okay? So you have all these rubber stamp stores that were selling and demonstrating that stamp, or a bunch of their stamps, or the whole line of stamps, right, for a certain manufacturer. And then, because, here's this large chain store that wants to order a bunch of them at a deep discount, and then they have coupons that they're giving away, half off or whatever, one item, whatever, Now, no one's buying those stamps from those stores anymore, so no one's demonstrating those stamps. And, that one manufacturer might have made that one big sale, but now no one's ordering their stamps anymore because those chain stores don't demonstrate them, right? They just sell them, they wholesale them or whatever. And now, so these kind of mid-tier, size rubber stamp manufacturers, or big ones even, they lost their audience, and then they were just gone. They might be gone like, they might be at the CHA show demonstrating or showing their new products, and then they're gone like the next month or something like that. It was shocking. Okay, so this is where, see all these little tiny little, floral types of textures are in here. It's a little bit too busy with them, right? So this kind of mist and haze in here is now kind of, you're introducing kind of this soft hazy texture along with all these little crisp dots. So these crisp dots are just too much, in terms of just an overall dominant texture through a big area of the scene. So this is just going in and mellowing out a lot of that. So I'm cutting down the textures of these areas in here. But see, you want to leave some of it as is. So you have that textural contrast, and that's a little bit too much white, but this can really kind of take care of a lot of the issues that might come about through this degree of toning and shading and all that type of thing. It gets rid of all those problems for me. So I think, look, it just looks better, but it also kind of obscures your weaknesses in here. So let's see. All right, so there we go, like that. You have to put a little bit more white pigment ink onto your pieces than you think you'll probably want, because when it dries a little bit darker. And then if you spray seal this piece, and I probably will be spray sealing this piece, the spray sealing itself, makes those thin layers of white pigment ink a little bit more transparent. It's kind of like if you ever sprayed like pastels or something like that, chalks, you lose some of the lightest of touches on there. It becomes a little bit more transparent. In which case you can add on another layer of white if you want to, just over the top of it, and then, spray seal that again. Maybe hit it with a thinner layer of spray sealant. All right, so see that, you can also, do a little masking over areas if you want to put some of this texturing down, but without, just hitting it in a general overall area. All right, so that is that. I use the Brilliance ink. You can use whatever pigment ink you want. The Brilliance is water-based and it just dries faster. Okay, so on this area, I was looking at these trees here, that little kind of tone right there is a little bit too much, so I'll just kind of obscure that a little bit more. I might have asked Uptown Stamps. I might have looked into their manufacturing at one point in time to see how much it would cost to have them manufacture my stamps. In fact, I think I did in about 1993 when I was starting off. I didn't know if I wanted to manufacture my own stamps. I've never pressed my own rubber, but I've always done the assembly and all that. for my stamps. Okay, now I want to use some StazOn ink. Okay, so I have this tree, this grouping of leaves, but I don't, we're not going to use this with the StazOn ink here. So we're going with the rubber version for the StazOn application here, okay? And the StazOn will go right over the top of the colored pencils, no problem. It'll adhere to it. So I definitely asked, does everyone remember PSX stamps? Such an awesome company, Personal Stamp Exchange. I asked them, they made the best stamps out there, rubber stamps. And I asked them, if they make stamps for other companies, if they'd manufacture and how much it would be, just out of curiosity. You might as well ask the best, manufacturer out there that's making the best stamps. And for them, they were open to it, but for them, in their manufacturing methodology, okay, if a stamp wasn't made in the quantity of 20,000 or more per year, okay, it negated their ability to make that stamp in that style. And that was per year. So what they did was they made these dies, cutting dies. So it's almost like, they had these cutting dies manufactured to like cookie cut out their stamps along with the cushion at the same time. So, and those dies are like extremely expensive to make. It's like making like metal molds or something like that, just that process. So it's like, yeah, 20,000, that's, that's not going to be, I just said, oh, okay, thank you. Good to know. It didn't surprise me at all, though. But I think I asked Uptown, too. I don't know how many companies Uptown was making for at the time, but yeah, I remember that was a known source for manufacturing. All right, so just making a canopy of leaves at the top of that. It's not necessarily the leaves that would go with these trees, but we'll say there's this other type of tree within that space. amongst these ones. Okay, and see this StazOn ink too. It's nice and dark. And then when it dries, it's almost it dries shiny looking too, so it has like a different textural element to it too, which I like. Okay, so let's add in some of these grassy forms down below. The leaves down here would be fine too, but it would look a little bit redundant having that same texturing up there as down here. Okay. So I'm making a little bit of a cluster right here of this Reed's large stamp. I think I want to put something into this scene as far as like a visual lead in here, or not visual lead in, but visual focal point. That's like a really small area but that's like the natural place for like a like subject matter, whatever it might be. Okay, so This tree is kind of over here to the side, so I just kind of did this little curling pattern down. I usually don't close off everything in the foreground. I don't know, I usually leave a little bit of an opening like that. And that's what I'll do there. Let's see. I've got this new little elk. Oh, here's my tiny little rocks too. I usually like to add in some extra texturing in here, and that's fun. I see you use 2 thicknesses of paint pens. Yeah, Horsey Girl, the ones that I use are 3mm, although on the package it says 2 to 3mm, but they're all 3mm as far as I can tell. And the other ones are the 0.7, so 0.7mm. And I think they're all, if I'm not mistaken, now I have about 3 different, maybe about 4 different packs of paint pens, acrylic paint pens. One of them is an oil based, but they're all that 0.7mm when it comes to the extra fine. There might be a, I don't know, 1mm pen out there, but I've never seen it. They're all kind of the same. I have a feeling that there's probably like 20 different brands of paint pens out there. And I would not be shocked at all if, there was one manufacturer for all of the different brands, or I don't know, 80% of them. So like, it's mostly the same that I can tell, the construction of the pen, the cap, the barrel, they all seem to be kind of like the same mold. Unless all these different manufacturers, unless they're different manufacturers, but they buy their, their molding equipment from the same source, But yeah, the 3mm for me, when I'm doing things like leaves and things like this, like if it's the size of like these leaves up here, I just find the 3mm to be really helpful, and just in terms of the time expenditure. It doesn't take, I'm not sitting around using, a 0.7mm forever. Although I do add a lot of these, but I'd be just, I'd be doing double the work. And plus, it's one of those things just for, variation in scale. It's good to have like 2 different brushes. It's like, if we're doing, I don't know, like an analogy, if we're going to be painting like a room or something like that, or a wall that has, a window in it or something like that, you might want to use a roller for the walls, or just something that's going to be faster, but, you're going to be using a different, brush for the trim or something like that. It's just, one thing can get just more detailed. And there, speaking of that, let me add in a slight little detailed touches on here. We darken in one side of the tree, and then you can kind of illuminate the other side too, with a few little highlights in here. I thought the oil-based pens, markers, would be different in terms of texture than the acrylic. So I have 1 pack of those. I thought it would be, like the little paint dot that you're laying down with these, or the line or whatever, but would be a little bit more raised and shiny if it was oil-based paint. But it was like almost the same. I mean, it might not be indicative of just oil paints in general. It could be just that 1 pack and that brand of paints, but I don't know. I found the acrylics to be better than that first pack of oil-based ones that I got. And I got the oil ones too because I thought they, and I mention I thought they might be more opaque as well. Because when the acrylic ones dry, or, when you just apply it here, they're a little bit, translucent. And I wanted to have one that was really strong and opaque, but I don't know, that one didn't quite do the trick. And I thought the colors were richer, at least with the Artiste Rose, you know, than that brand. Okay, so I'm looking for... yeah. Oh, okay. So this one's like this tiny little elk here. I'm going to go with the largest thing that I can fit in here. And I think an animal. Let's see what I can find here. Here's the old man and dog. I don't want to put that one in there. Let me see if I can find my larger. I'm not sure if this one's going to fit in here. Oh, it'll fit, but I have to have it, you know, from behind the tree a little bit. Like that. See, I'm going to have to mask off that tree, but I think going with the larger one will be better. Or actually, let me see this again. That one looked really distant. Maybe it'll be better though, because if I have this one right here, this is like a really dark thing, and be like the elk's booties like merging with this tree right here. Unless I did this one lighter, you know, so it'd be like more distant. Okay, so okay, let me see. Maybe I'll just do that. I'm going to practice one first, though. Okay, so you go like this, and that'd be too light right there. So go like that, and that. Second, I don't know, I'm printing it out on copy paper, so it's absorbing all of my ink. Yeah, here, we'll just do it like this. Okay. So fully inked up right here, okay, and I'm going to remove some of the ink off the base so it's like in that mist as well. And I'll just wipe off that its backside a little bit, and then we'll mask off right here. And then I'll use some additional pigment ink at the base of it. I just hope I didn't wipe off too much. If it like stamps out really, really light and you can barely see it, then the title of this piece, instead of it being like Bluebell, whatever, forest floor, it'll be like Memories of the Elk. Okay, there we go. That's not too bad. Okay, so see that right there? I've just kind of wiped off that bottom part of it. So it looks like it's more distant, okay? And we'll give it some color. I should color the elk the same, you know, bluish tinge. Okay. Oh, I forgot about this color right here too. This color is a little bit more in the spirit of the tree color. It's a little bit, you know, it's like a beige. But I like to add that down here as well for a little bit more color harmony. You have some of that color in here, and you have some of this color in here. So some of the greens are in there, like right there. Okay, let me see if that elk is dry enough. I was spreading around a lot of that black that was, you know, in there, because it was so wet still. But let me see if I can hit it with a little bit of this pigment ink now. Yeah, okay, I better not take a chance. Let's go ahead and heat set it a little bit. Actually, I might not. Now, here, let me see. This is the last. This is not like the point in time where I want to go like this over the top of that elk, and it's like smearing out some of that black into the scene. That I should zoom out all the way in case that happens. You can't see it. I'll say, yeah, it looks, it looks fine. I'll say if it looks all smudgy, there must be something on your computer screen. Okay, so I'm just kind of inking at this tiny little portion right here. And let's see if I can get a little bit in there. Okay, it seems dry. Okay. It was a little bit dry. It was starting to get a little smudgy, I can tell. But it's just like a little faint, little kind of beigeish tinge. But do you see that little kind of cloud of mist right there? All right, so... Trying to decide if I want anything else in here. Let's do this here a little. Let's create a little bit of a stronger little bank of mist right here, I think. $20K or more. Yep, it was 20,000 stamps. That just comes to show you how many stamps PSX was moving at that time. They were in a lot of different, chain stores, large, probably Michael's and everything like. Well, I don't know at the time, like in those early mid 90s, I guess. But definitely worldwide. And then they were also doing that thing, they call it pad printing, where they weren't just taking a stamp and stamping the top of wood. It was like actually printed. The imagery is actually printed on top of a piece of wood. That's why their wood was not the hourglass style, but they were wooden, square wooden. And then I think they bevel the edges or something like crazy like that in terms of their process. It was such a in-depth process. And then they used this red foam cushioning that was really fantastic for stamps. But you had to use like a rubber cement or, rubber adhesive to adhere it to it. They weren't using double stick tape like most of us used. It was just, I don't know, it was just a crazy, crazy, super finely crafted printing mechanism that they were making. And then, of course, after they pad printed, they probably spray sealed as well with some sort of acrylic sealant over the top of that printed image. So, yeah, it was really quite a production for them. Definitely beautiful, though. I don't think I have a single PSX stamp. I should get one just for, just for the sake of it, because it's the finest example of a art rubber stamp, that was and will ever be kind of manufactured. It's an amazing representation. All right, so adding a little bit more mist in that meadow like that. Okay, and I think that is it there. So, I mean, I wouldn't call this a quick scene or anything like that. 10 hours wasn't too bad, though. No. But, okay, so see that stays on ink, how it kind of has a different texturing up there? It's kind of interesting to me. And it's how it's real shiny like that. See it right there? So it makes it stand out a little bit better against the background. I didn't used to use stays on, but I'm using it now for, I don't know, it's almost like you get this little kind of coating on there, like a bonus, I don't know, whatever texture for using it on there. So it makes it stand out a little bit more from the background than if I just stamped it in, more dye-based ink, which I don't know if dye-based ink would even stick or adhere to those applications of colored pencils. So I don't know, it does really well in there. Here's that 3mm paint pen. See, my initial applications of this paint pen, as it dries, it kind of gets a little bit more see-through, like I said. So with this and the pigment ink, if you kind of lose some of your, I don't know, in this case, kind of highlighting, you can just go back in and add another little layer of your paint right back over the top of it. And I have a feeling that the more you kind of build up, the more surface oriented it becomes, and it doesn't transform as much when dry. That's what I don't know. I'm just guessing that. So, all right, Bluebells in the meadow. Let's see, and you're still here. Yeah, PSX. Yeah, PSX. Rubber Stampede, you know, all of those major manufacturers that were really dependent on those big chain stores, you know, or that became dependent on them. Yeah, they're all gone. Unfortunately, I wish they were still around. I was really bummed when I heard that PSX was gone, especially. I knew the manufacturer for Rubber Stampede as well, and I talked to him quite a bit, but they shipped all their manufacturing like to China or something like that for wood-mounted stamps, and PSX did the same thing. I think that kind of led to their downfall as well. Anyway, industry stuff, you know, but there's only so much to talk about, like Bluebells. Anyway, so I really love the look of these carpeted areas like that. You know, in California, look at my different color schemes came out. Magenta. I kind of like, I don't know, maybe I like that one a little bit more. I don't know. I really like this carpeted little area down here. And I want to do something a little bit more kind of lupin or California poppy lupin kind of looking for the California wildflower look. And instead of, like I said, instead of just going in and applying orange dots over the top of a green color scheme, you know, doing these kind of swatchy little layers of colors as a base for those wildflowers, I think is you know, can work. I never tried that before because I wasn't quite sure how kind of, you know, laying down a slathering of orange or something like that in green, you know. I was worried about those transition zones where you'd have orange overlapping green, you know, for poppies, or purple into green. But I don't know, it doesn't seem to really matter. And it seems to harmonize reasonably well. I don't know. Easier to do than I thought, because it seems like just about anything goes. It doesn't look like it, though, when you're first in it. It's like, oh my God, this is like a real kind of, you know, kind of a sloppy, I don't know, a sloppy transition, but the paint pens just kind of cover it up anyway, so I don't know. It doesn't seem to really matter too much. All right, folks. Let's see. First brand of stamps you started to collect. Okay, yeah. That was a great brand to, you know, collect. That's for sure. Yeah. Those are really fantastic stamps. I wonder, you know, a lot of people that had wood-mounted stamps, a lot of people have unmounted their stamps over the years, just, you know, due to you know, storage considerations and whatnot. But I'm curious to know if people unmounted their PSX ones, you know, those, if I had a PX, now I haven't unmounted any of my wood mounted stamps, but if I did and I had PSX ones, I would never unmount those. I guess I can never have enough mist. I keep adding it in here. It's because it also kind of, like I said, it starts getting a little bit darker as this pigment ink dries. So, you can just kind of build it up a little bit more and get a thicker layer in there. I forget it was. I think it's at someone told me. I think PS6 they were getting rid of all their stamps one time or something like that. It's like suddenly, and they were just going to stickers, or I forget what it was. It was something. There was some kind of shocking kind of change in strategy or business models or something like that at one point in time. Maybe when it was like scrapbooking was coming into play. You had places like Mrs. Grossman selling, rolls of stickers out there or something like that. But I thought that happened at one point in time. I'm not sure. You guys would know more about that than I do. All right. Well, thanks for joining in. Your cat's getting your cat needs some attention there, It says, "Hey, stop looking at the screen, Mom. You gotta it needs some TLC." Oh, Stampscapes was your first. That's awesome. And that's the way it should be. High ground, you started off with the best then. And PSX was good too. All right, folks, there's your piece in there. I think the elk was a good thing to add in there. We needed something in that background, didn't we? Some kind of focal point, I don't know, the visual path goes like that and that and that and that. I don't know. I can put a little haze of some lighter blue in the, like right around up here, something like that. I might do that later after everything dries a lot more thoroughly. But I might just put like a slight tinge of, something like, this tone right up in there too, just to kind of close it off. I didn't do it in this one yesterday because this whole area up here has a bunch of this green, and I don't want to turn the sky green by going over it after the fact. If I was to do it, I should have done it in the beginning. But yeah, my second piece doing the bluebells. So if you guys do some scenes, and you want some wildflowers in there, I'd suggest trying, give this a try. If you don't have these pens are really inexpensive. Now, I mean, this set right here is like a set of like 40 somethings. So, but I think they were like 50 cents a pen or something like that. And these ones I've been using for even longer, and it was like a really cheap set, and I don't know, it works perfectly every time. These pens are a little bit more watery than some of your really good gel pens of years old. But those gel pens, after a while, it seems like you kind of fight them a little bit, you know what I mean, to keep them flowing. These things, I've no doubt that these pens right here, I'm going to be able to use to completion, all right? And it's because they're made a little bit thinner, okay? Now, I was mentioning I want some of these more opaque, but I think that's the trade-off. They make them a little bit watery so that they just, they don't break down on us. They're going to be, usable for the duration of, that there's still paint in there. Okay, so I'll take that any day. Having had a lot of gel pens over the years. Now the Uniball Signo pen's really fantastic too, but I don't even know if those ones were ones that I used a whole lot of them just to absolute completion. Because you can see through them and you can see the how much ink is left in them most of the time. So yeah. So give it a try. Hello, Froggy Fresh. Goodbye, Froggy Fresh. So here's my Bluebells. Here's the first one right here, right there. I have a feeling that that one looks maybe a little bit more real. Maybe it's because it's lighter, but I wanted to have this one like playing around with more intensity. I like this one too, though. But I don't know. Maybe this one right here, it's like 50-50 greens and purples or something like that. We need to do like one that's like all purple and just like a 10%, a little bit of a grassy terrain or something like that. But doesn't the mist really helps in here, right? Because it kind of became too busy and like cluttered. Like when you looked at it, it's like making your eyes kind of like vibrate or something like that with all those little colored dots. But that thickly, applied, but very methodically thin, and built up to thicker, really helped it out like that. So, yeah. So big piece right here. All right, folks. I hope you have a great rest of. Oh gosh, it's a Monday today, huh? So, hope everyone has a great rest of day, night. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining in. Enjoyed talking about everything stamping, stamp-related, history of stamping, Uptown rubber stamps. I haven't talked about them in years. I haven't even thought about them in years. So it's really cool hearing these types of things popping up or whatever, the Georgia Stamp Convention, and that really cool kind of entity of a show like that. Violet patches. Stamp out a violet patch, Kay, you can do your yard then, you can reference your yard. When we're talking about photo stamping too, we're talking about this type of thing. You can take a picture of, like a close-up of like a violet patches or something like that in your yard. Even if you can blow it up or something like that too, and then you can photo stamp right on top of them. I think that'd be really cool. You stamp your imagery on top of there, and then if you want to make it look more, more dimensional, you add in some additional touches of these types of things on the photograph of those violets or something like that. I think that would be really cool. So there's all kinds of things like that. I've been stamping on things mostly of photos of skies, okay, but I've seen where people have done, other types of things. The thing is, when people take like landscape photographers or something like that, they're not just doing a close-up version of like that, okay? That area where there's nothing kind of anchoring into it. But that's the type of photo that would be perfect for photo stamping. So if someone has access, or you have it in your yard, where you can just kind of X out, crop out everything else within that frame so that it leaves it open, that would be a perfect thing for something like you can stamp trees on there, or, I don't know, whatever, mountain trees or something like that, where the foreground is meadow, but it would be the open area like that would be, those violets or something like that. I think that'd be really cool. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining in. I'm going to get this formatted off and mounted, and I think that will be... I might add in that blue, though. I'll figure it out. Thanks again for joining in.